Welcome back. You're watching The Nation at 9, and we start off with one Pakistani connection that the London police has found. Now, one of the attackers, Shehzad Butt, is a Britisher, but he's a Pakistani-born Britisher. Now, the police in England has released the names of two of the three attackers, and one of them happens to be a Pakistan-born naturalized British citizen who, by the way, has been on the radar for a very long time. Last year, a documentary named The Jihadis Next Door featured this man, Shehzad Butt, on your screens now, fighting with the London police. His extremist views have been known, quite well known, for a very long time now, and our investigation has also revealed that MI5 had him on the radar. But the eyes on him fell after the London police and MI5 decided that he was no threat. The question, of course, then is, did the English intelligence agencies or the British intelligence agencies drop the ball on this one at all? And whether or not the recurring Pakistan connection, time and again, all over the world, in these attacks, suicide or otherwise, is just too obvious to ignore now. More on that in just a bit. First, take a look at the story we filed. I'll come back with big questions and our panel. Take a look at this.
A dastardly terror attack, 7 people killed and several scarred for life. The London terror attack again brings us to realize the need for united combat against terrorism. Unsurprisingly, terror state's proxy was one of the attackers. While Pakistan's cricket team was defeated at Birmingham, Pak origin Khurram Shehzad Butt, supporter of ISIS, terrorized London streets and killed innocent lives. Pakistan is the cradle of terror now. Its proxy is terrorizing across the world. From the deadly 26/11 attacks to mass shooting in San Bernardino to various attacks on the Indian Army bases, Pakistan is terror's Al-Qaeda.
One of the three attackers involved in the London blast has been identified as a Pakistani-born person. The authorities have released names of 2 out of 3 attackers involved in the blasts in London which took place last week, out of which one person had earlier too been reported to the authorities and was known in his neighborhood for his extremist views.
The whole world should arise, awake and unite to fight terrorism, and the fight must begin by making Pakistan, by forcing Pakistan rein in terrorism. There is no way out.
Here, what is the Pak connection is going to be very difficult to prove. And Pakistan has kept itself, the government, the ISIS, kept itself relatively, I will say, insulated from being pointed a finger towards.
The London Bridge attack must be the last straw. Pakistan cannot be allowed to harbor and fund more terrorists. Is it now time for a global anti-Pak alliance? Bureau Report, NewsX.
So, big questions on The Nation at 9, debate number 2 tonight on your screens now. Did the British intelligence services drop the ball in the case of Shehzad Butt when his extremist ideology was very well documented? That's question number 1. Are increasing Pakistani connections in such attacks all over the world now too obvious to ignore? Should the London investigation also include possible guidance from jihadi groups based in Pakistan? And my last question tonight, how can the world tackle self-radicalized and brainwashed youth, especially in vulnerable areas of the world like Europe, as we've seen increasing attacks in not just England, but all across Europe? Joining us tonight on the panel, Lieutenant General Rakesh Sharma. He's a defense expert. He joins me in the studio. Ejaz Ilmi joins us, spokesperson of the Bharatiya Janata Party. Captain retired Alok Bansal will be joining us. Brahma Chellaney, a strategic affairs expert, is on the panel, and Arsalan Bhatti, bureau chief of Dunya News, joins us from Pakistan. Oli Bharat, correspondent NewsX, will be joining us as well. Thank you all for being with us. Let me start, if I could, with General Sharma. General Sharma, first off, before I come to the Pakistan angle, self-radicalized youth, individuals, we've seen increasingly, data suggests, not just in Europe or England, but also in America, most attacks are by what we call homegrown terrorists. Self-radicalized youth who don't need any preachers or any radical Islamic extremists to go to them in a mosque and preach them. The internet is available, and they're increasingly naturalized citizens or citizens of that particular country. How can the world really tackle homegrown terror? Is there a manual? I believe there's not, because this is the toughest kind of terror to track.
Yeah,
The fact of the matter is that in UK itself there are 4 million odd Muslims. And when they start giving some figures, they said we are about 23,000 under gaze. Now 23,000 all would not be same kind. There are about 3-4 lakh people who travel to and fro between Pakistan and UK every year. Now you say this quantum of people who come here, get indoctrinated and go back is a Herculean task. Now I'm sure the intelligence agencies will be keeping close watch on many of the...
Well, it's interesting because Shahzad Butt was on the radar.
Yeah.
MI5 was tracking him, but
Right.
then they came to the conclusion that he wasn't likely to participate in an attack because his noise levels, his frequency kind of went down, and they let him off. Immediately as they let him off, he went into
So there must be many others, say hundreds others who are actually total under watch, under control. So there always be a laxity which comes up. This gentleman belonged to Jhelum. He belongs to the areas close to Mirpur, and there are a large number of Mirpuris settled in UK. See, the fact of the matter is that while the intelligence agencies do a large amount of work, there is always a possibility of somebody being lost out. In this particular case now, in hindsight, it does seem that he acted in a movie which was kind of radical in nature, and he was radicalized. So it was
a documentary, of course, and he was very
Yeah.
clear and unapologetic about his extremist
Yeah,
beliefs.
right.
And to full disclosure, I think I've seen that particular documentary a long time ago. It was aired in 2016, and I also believe that there is a group, Al Muhajirin, that they call.
Yeah,
He belonged to
Al-Muhajirin.
that particular
Yeah.
group. Now I want to go across to Brahma Chellaney as well before I go to Ejaz Ilmi and our friend Arslan Bhatti. Brahma Chellaney, self-radicalized youth, problem all over the world, but time and again a Pakistani connection, no matter how subtle or non-subtle it might be. If you look at San Bernardino, you look at other attacks all over Europe, this particular attack as well. Now he might be a British citizen, he might have been a naturalized citizen, but there is that faint Pakistani connect here and there. Brahma Chellaney, can you hear me?
Pakistan has become ground zero of the terrorist threat that the world faces. Many of the terrorist attacks in the West have been traced back to Pakistan. And this is becoming a serious problem, even on the international stage. Pakistan has been responsible member of the international community when a lot of terrorism is emanating from Pakistan or by people in the West who are Pakistani origin.
Brahma, I'd just like to rectify whatever problem there is in the audio. I'll quickly go across to Ejaz Ilmi for a bit here. Ejaz Ilmi, not to sound overtly, anti-Pakistan here, but there are too many instances to ignore now. India has been saying this for a very long time to various responses from various European countries, even America for that matter, that Pakistani jihadi groups might be involved in not just incubating such radical thought and extremist elements, but also actively supporting them as well.
You know, actually, in fact, the entire International Committee of Nations need to take note that every strand and every sliver of this wanton political Islamic jihadism emanates some way or the other or has a link with Pakistan or Pakistan origin. Secondly, it's very clear you have this travel ban that Trump wanted to impose. I wonder why Pakistan has been left out. And the reason was obviously, despite the threat, they quickly put Hafiz Saeed and Makki under house arrest, and now they're saying they'll yank the plug on 5,000 terror accounts. If Saudi Arabia can cut ties with Qatar for supporting Al-Qaeda, Taliban and ISIS.
Well, allegedly,
we
don't know if Qatar has accepted those charges yet. Let's be careful.
And hidden by Pakistan for 9 years in the country.
Allegedly, Qatar denies it. Qatar denies it. Let's not jump to conclusions there.
No,
but,
let's understand.
Saudi Arabia calling out Qatar is, I think, the pot calling the kettle black.
Let's call a spade a spade.
Well, then we should call out Saudi Arabia also. It's like calling the pot calling the kettle black.
Being supported. Let's pull the plug. Let's pull the plug. Well, the UAE is also saying so, Egypt is also saying so, Bahrain is also saying so, there has to be some truth, and there are stories that whether it's ISIS, Al-Qaeda or Taliban
And this political jihadism, the fueling and the funding has been coming from Qatar for a long, long time.
Okay.
So why can't the same apply to a state like Pakistan, where it's very, very evident that the fountainhead, the cradle is Pakistan, and some linkage has to be found by all this political jihadism emanates largely from Pakistan. It's a standard fare. Unless USA also puts, they have to clamp down. And China must be able to understand that you can't keep on glossing over what Pakistan is doing.
All right. Before I get a response from Arslan Bhatti, Ajaz, I take your point.
Let's be straight. Let's be clear.
I take your point. I take your point. Before I go to Arslan Bhatti for a response, I've just been told Ollie Barrett is with us now. Thank you, Ollie, for joining us. Let me just get to it straight away. There is yet another Pakistan connection, no matter how faint it might be. This man was a Pakistan-born British citizen. A man whose extremist ideology was known not just to the police but also the intelligence agencies in Britain. Did the British intelligence services drop the ball on this because they knew he was an extremist? He was extremely vocal about it. He had run-ins with the police as well. Are we looking at a case where the British intelligence agencies perhaps dropped the ball here?
Certainly authorities are being asked some very tough questions here. Now, the police would tell you that while they were looking into him, there was no actual evidence that he was doing anything illegal, and as such they downgraded their inquiry. You can hold extremist views without actually carrying out any illegal acts, of course, but critics are saying of the police and MI5, the security agency here, look, this man wasn't just flagged up to you on several occasions. He appeared in a television documentary espousing some of his extremist views, appearing to go on tape with his support of the Islamic State group. So there appear to have been plenty of chances for authorities to be on top of this man and perhaps to have therefore stopped the plot that unfolded on Saturday on London Bridge. Now, the other comeback that we're getting from police on all of this is that suggestion that their resources have been cut in recent years and that therefore they don't simply have the manpower to be on top of all the people in the UK that they know to hold potential extremist views. You can't follow all of these hundreds of people 24 hours a day. That is a huge manpower drain. So conflicting views here, but certainly some very tough questions for authorities about whether they did miss something here.
Ollie, I also want to ask you about another individual. He's also known as this hate preacher. I keep forgetting his name. He's also of Pakistani origin and he perhaps belongs to the same organization. I believe in the recent past he's been sent to jail because he's been espousing jihad from British soils or from British Muslims as well. If they can send him to jail, and if you can just jog your memory for his name, I keep forgetting his name. I think he's been recently sent to jail as well. Was Shahzad Butt the same ilk?
I think you're talking about Anjem Chowdhury.
Anjem Chowdhury,
yes,
that's the one.
There have been various incidents in recent years of hate preachers, so-called hate preachers here in the UK being sent to jail, even being deported from the country. I think Khurram Butt was probably not in the same league in terms of publicity, in terms of grabbing headlines. He was a bit more below the radar than that, but clearly there is also a difference between preaching hate and plotting to carry out a terrorist attack. They're, potentially very different items for authorities to be on top of. But yes, certainly, that is exactly the question that's now being asked here in the UK, and the Prime Minister, Theresa May, is saying that the country has been too tolerant of extremism. She hasn't exactly set out what she wants to do about that, but certainly her tone has changed since the attack on Saturday.
All right, Ollie, stay with us. I have a couple of more questions for you, but I just want to involve my Pakistani guest as well at this point. Arslan Bhatti, you've heard our British colleague, of course, say that the authorities in Britain are now perhaps coming to the conclusion they've been too soft on extremist hate preachers or extremist ideologies being given a megaphone of sorts, really, because just preaching hate doesn't really mean you're going to do something about it, but you can't take any chances. Of late, Mr. Bhatti, too many Pakistani connections have been found, be it San Bernardino, be it other European attacks, be it London, even the Glasgow bombing perhaps had some Pakistani connection. Is it now becoming too obvious, the Pakistani connection, to ignore? Most of these radicalized youngsters have some Pakistan connection or the other.
First thing, I want to clarify that if a person belongs to India, then what? Because Mr. Butt has very much Pakistani origin, there is no doubt about it. Dunia TV has also found his residence in Jhelum, 2-hour drive from our capital, 2.5-hour drive from capital. But that doesn't mean the whole Pakistan is exporting terrorism or whole Pakistan
No,
is
I'm not saying the whole
terrorism.
Pakistan is. I'm saying, Mr.
Okay,
Bhatti, that there are jihadi groups in Pakistan that are somehow connected to these self-radicalized youth. They perhaps give them infrastructure, even hate training. They give them this warped idea of Islam, and then that leads them to commit such heinous crimes across the world.
Islam doesn't teach, Islam doesn't taught a single word that to
Sir,
kill
I know
an
that.
innocent
I'm
person.
saying this warped version of Islam that Hafiz Saeed preaches,
That is not
that
Islam.
Al-Qaeda preaches.
That is not Islam.
We are
That
talking
is not
about
Islam.
political jihadi Islamism.
I am talking about Islamic jihad. You are just questioning me Islamic jihad.
Yes.
That is not Islam. Islam never tells any person to
So
kill
the
a
entire
person
panel
without-
knows that. Islam doesn't preach violence. I know that. You know that. The panel knows that. But this radical
let's not shy away
extremist
from
form
calling a
of
spade a
Islam...
spade.
One second. These jihadi groups that perpetuate hate against anyone who does not subscribe to their warped, very warped brand of Islam. This morphed form of Islam. Don't you think those roots trace back to Pakistan and jihadi groups in Pakistan? And the government, your government, has refused to do something about it?
Government is very seriously taking up this matter. Already we are conducting a massive operation in our bordering areas, especially linking with Afghanistan. One thing. Number two, all the jihadi, I am not denying that jihadi element is fully finished from Pakistan. Jihadi element is very much in Pakistan. Radical elements are in Pakistan, but that are very, very, very few in number, and they all are hiding.
I think
near
that's a very
bordering
broad
areas.
statement you're
Mr.
making,
Bhatti,
sir.
you are nurturing forces
Very
of terror
broad.
like
Ajaz
Hafiz
Alvi.
Saeed, Makki, Haqqani Network.
Are we talking about Mr. Hafiz Saeed and Makki here? We are not talking about Hafiz Saeed and Hafiz Saeed. Let me again answer your question now.
You are nurturing forces of terror. You are nurturing forces of terror, sir.
No,
Mr.
India is
Bhatti,
also
time to
nurturing
speak
forces of
up.
terror. No, India is also nurturing terror. We got proof. What is Mr. Kulbhushan Yadav?
Afghanistan is blaming you for the Kabul blast.
No, Afghanistan
is blaming you. We are blaming you.
Afghanistan
All right. Give me a second now.
The linkage is Pakistan is there in every act of terror.
All right. Mr. Bhatti, give me a second.
I mean,
Ajaz,
what
give
is
me a second,
happening?
please. Hold
Will the
on.
silent majority speak up?
Gentlemen,
against
please
this?
hold on.
No
Give me a
silent
second now.
majority.
Mr. Bhatti, please give me a
India is
second.
bigger country.
Please give me a second
India
now.
is bigger country.
I
am not blaming India. I am not blaming Afghanistan. You are blaming me.
No, I'm asking you a
answering
question,
simple
sir. I'm not blaming the entire state of Pakistan.
I'm not talking about you.
I'm not saying that every Pakistani nurtures terror. All I'm saying, sir, that these are way too many Pakistani connections cropping up here and there in America, in Europe, in England.
I am not denying it. I have already said it. There are very, very few people who are nurturing, who are the nurseries of terrorism. And the Pakistan army is taking very serious action along with the government, along with the law enforcing agencies.
Well, but India doesn't think so, but that's India's position. Let me go across to Alok Bansal for a bit, then I'll go back to Oli Barrett. Alok Bansal, you wanted to come and make your point quickly.
Yeah, I just wanted to tell you that we need to understand that fundamentalism is a prelude to extremism, and that must be appreciated. The contrast between UK and Singapore is to be seen. In Singapore, when somebody was preaching this sort of hatred, the government acted. Because if somebody says the killing of apostates is justified, then you can't be waiting for him to kill the people before you act against him. And the second factor which we need to understand is that in the case of Pakistan, radicalization is inevitable. A country that was created on the basis of Islam, you have to give primacy to the religion. And that's one of the reasons why we are seeing that Islam and this warped version of Islam has continued to predominate. And the country has not been able to do, the government has not been able to do anything by which you could downplay the role the religion plays in the society. The predominant role that religion is playing, I think, drives people onto the path of radicalization. And
right,
to counter
again,
it,
I'd like to
you
make a
need to come out
distinction here,
with a counter narrative, because whether we like it or not,
again, I'd like to make a
all
distinction.
those who are becoming radicalized
I'd like to make a distinction that the kind of Islam
Yeah,
that these people preach is not Islam.
Yeah.
I think most scholars of Islam have also denounced these people who preach extremist hate. I want to quickly go back to General Sharma here.
No,
before I go
most
to Ali Barrett.
scholars may disagree, but there are adequate number of scholars who justify that also.
Yes,
Please understand.
those are hate preachers like
whatever they're
Anjan Chowdhury
doing,
that
they
you just
have
mentioned.
a theological
He's in jail
narrative.
right now. Okay, give me a
However
second.
flawed it may be.
Yes, yes.
But,
give me a second. General Sharma. General
but
Sharma.
I
this
agree.
Pakistan connection.
But they have a theological narrative.
All right,
And that
all right.
theological narrative has to be countered.
Of course,
We
of
need
course.
to counter that
General
theological
Sharma,
narrative.
how does
that theological narrative can only be
all right,
countered
all right.
theologically.
Give me a second now. Alok Bansal, give me a second now. Are we, look, again, as I told Mr. Bhatti right now, I'm not saying that the entire state of Pakistan does this, but there are enough evidence. Should the London investigation also include any possible connections to Pakistan? Because after all, he's a Pakistan-born Muslim, as admitted by Mr. Bhatti, Pakistan-born Britain here. Should the investigation cover Pakistan as well? Because there might be something we will find here which might help us stop future attacks.
And at this juncture, I don't think we can say this. The fact is that he hasn't travelled, or at least
He hasn't travelled for a while.
He hasn't travelled. And second is, the gap between adolescence in UK and the man who comes to become a terrorist is too short. Now, these people, all these people who have been found of late are in early 20s. So he's playing cricket today till 10 years, 12 years. In 7-8 years, he transforms himself to a greatly radicalized gentleman. So there is something happening in the teens for these people which has to be addressed within the country itself. In UK itself has to say, or Europe itself, saying what is happening in teens when the man transforms himself from playing cricket there and being a small child or a student, and suddenly in 22 years of age he takes it on himself to get like a suicide bomber, and that's in UK. It's not happening in Pakistan. Now, here the Pakistan connection, I think, like you rightly said, is kind of faint at this juncture, but it needs to be studied more.
All right, clearly. Ali Barrett, I have very little time. I have a couple of questions for you. One, of course, is slightly me going off tangent because of what Donald Trump has said in his tweets, targeting Sadiq Khan, and many American outlets perhaps asking the question, was Sadiq Khan targeted because of his religion? How are the London authorities, the mayor, responding to that? First off, is that a distraction in the investigation? Also, are there any after effects towards the Muslim community at large, which is by and large peaceful in the UK? Any sort of side effects, if I may call them?
Well, let's deal with that first. I mean, sometimes when you see terrorist attacks here in the UK and elsewhere in Europe, you do see a spike in hate crimes. We haven't really had time to work out whether that has happened in this case, but I think we can say that actually London has remained united after this attack, and we've actually seen communities coming together to pledge that they will work together on issues like this, but also work together at making sure that the city doesn't become united and doesn't spiral into any kind of spike in hate crimes. But we'll keep an eye on that once we start getting the numbers from the police in the coming days. In terms of Sadiq Khan, I think it's fair to say that most Londoners have been uniting behind the idea that they're not best pleased with the American president using the immediate days after a terrorist attack to launch his own verbal attack via Twitter on the Muslim mayor of the British capital city. That has not gone down well and has led to a political row here in the UK, with Theresa May, the British Prime Minister, being criticised for not quickly enough, in many people's view, criticising Donald Trump for making those comments on Twitter. She has come out today and been a bit stronger and said that she feels it would be wrong to criticise Sadiq Khan in the way that Donald Trump has done. I think most people here in London feel that Sadiq Khan has reacted pretty well to the attack we saw on Saturday. One of the other things that he has been doing is speaking very strongly about how he believes he is a patriotic British Muslim, and that these attacks and attacks like these aren't carried out in his name. He is, of course, democratically elected as the Mayor of London, and according to the approval ratings, is a pretty popular Mayor of London as we speak.
That is, of course, some good news coming out, and I also, of course, wanted to mention what the response was from Sadiq Khan when the tweet came out. He said, we have much more important things to do than respond to Donald Trump. And I think that resonated as well. Thank you, Ali Barrett, for joining us and giving us details of what's happening in London. Thank you, Ejaz Ilmi, Brahma Chellaney. Thank you, General Sharma. Thank you, Arslan Bhatti and Alok Bansal. We are out of time here on The Nation at 9, but we won't let you go before we show you the image of the day. There it is on your screens now. These are rag pickers covered in plastic and in mud. This is Hyderabad, India, and that picture tells a story. A woman collecting recyclables in Hyderabad. There are miles to go before India is Swachh. That's the picture of the day. I'm Athar Khan. Have a good night.